Happy MoJOY Monday. Carmen Braaksma here. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator from Arvada, Colorado. And today's card, we're going to continue on with a fall theme. But today's card was inspired by a friend that I actually met through a Bible study group that I was a part of. And her name is Rita, and she's from Stamp Crazy VIP. And I watched her last week, I think it was last week, and she was creating this card. And the cool thing about it is you can make 4 cards out of one sheet of designer series paper of 6x6. But one thing that I wanted to show you that was different from hers, and I will show you that. But before we get started, let me just say that we're going to be using this stamp set from the Beauty of Friendship. And we're going to be using basically just this little spotted stamp here and this sentiment that says, friendships refresh the soul. And then we're going to be using the die cut, this little bird die, double bird dies that comes with this bundle. And then we're going to be using this designer series paper. Let me move this out of the way. And this is called, let me get my catalog. This is called, well, let's see, what is it called? Oh, it's the Beauty of Earth designer series paper, and it's on page 130. And so we're going to be using this paper, and I'm going to be using this side of this paper, and then it's this side of this one. So this is what the backs look like, and I'm going to be using these 2 sides. And then, so what I did, because they're 12 by 12, is I went ahead and cut the one that I needed for this technique down to a 6x6. So, but today I wanted to show you just on a scrap piece of designer paper, because I didn't want to cut another one of those. I guess I could have, but one trick that I wanted to show you, and let me tell you what she did and what I did differently. So when she did it, she basically had you put a little mark like at basically an inch here. So she would measure in an inch and she'd put a little mark there. And then she'd turn it around and measure in an inch and put a pencil mark there. And she did that on all 4 sides. And then she basically cut from mark to mark. But when you do it that way, what ends up happening is you get 2 pieces that are slightly smaller than the other ones. So I thought I would try, and I experimented with it, trying to figure it out. So what I decided to do, since we're working about an inch, is if you take the point, so this point and this point, and you line it up on the inch marks of your cutting, of your trimmer, perfectly, and then do your cutting, then when you do it that way, the pieces will line up evenly. So I'm going to take this point right here, and this is my 1-inch line right here, and down here there's this 1 inch right here. And I hope I'm in close enough where you can see it. I tried to bring it in closer, so let me see if I can bring it in a little closer. See, so here's my 1 inch here, and then here is the 1 inch mark right here. So I'm going to have to zoom out a little or you're not going to see it, but I just kind of wanted to show you that. So let me zoom out just a little so you can see the whole paper. See if I can get this lined up here. So I'm going to line up this point and this point, opposite points on this paper with that 1 inch mark. So I'm going to line it up here with that one. And then, well, I'm going to have to do some little adjusting here. But this point is lined up with the 1 inch. And now I have to swing this over a little to line it up with the 1 inch up here. And then if you make sure that you're lined up, you hold it down nicely, then you can go ahead and make your cut. So let's go ahead and cut down. Now the trick here is when you rotate it to do the other 2 points, now you've got these 2 pieces that are cut. So once you get them lined up, you got to make sure that your piece is like if it was still a full piece and not cut. So I'm going to try my best to hold it that I can, and I'm going to line up again this point with the 1-inch line, and then this one as well down here with the 1-inch. So I got a point at the 1-inch here. This one's still off up here, so I'm going to move it, put it at that 1-inch line there. Still a little off down here. So you have to finagle with it a little till you get those points right at the 1-inch line mark. And this one's a little more difficult only in the fact that once you get there, you got to make sure that your end pieces line up over here because you don't want to be off there. So that looks pretty clean right there. Even that point up here seems to be right at the 1-inch, and this seems to be right at the 1-inch down here. So now we're ready to just take and cut that. Oops, I want my blade up at the top. I like pulling down. For some reason, when I push, I don't do it very well, and I tear my paper. So I'm holding that nice, and then I'm going to just pull down. So there you have it. So now we're going to have 4 pieces that we can use. And I don't know if I told you this as well. I don't remember now. But for example, on the card that we're going to make today, I want this to be the side that I'm going to be putting on my card. So when you do the cutting, you got to make sure to turn it over and do your cutting from the back side. Otherwise, so like if you look at these pieces that I cut, if let me show you what I mean. So let me get this out of the way. So if I had my piece of, this is the way I cut it with this side up, right? So it doesn't line up right. So you always have to make sure that the side you want up, you have to turn it over before you do your cutting. See, so now these pieces will line up the way I want them to as we start designing the card. So that's another little trick to remember when you're doing that. So what I would suggest you do is practice with some paper that, you don't care if you mess up. So let me go ahead and zoom out just a little more and before we get started on the card. I don't know if this lighting, if it was too bright. Okay, so now let's get started with the card. So I'm going to take and I will have all the dimensions in the description. I'm going to take the basic white, and here are the pieces that I cut that we're going to be using. So I've already made one card, so I only have 3 pieces here, and I'm only going to show you one card. Once you got one done, you can go back and do the other 3 with your one piece, but we're just going to work on the one. So what I did first was I kind of just laid this here, just kind of for a visual on where I wanted to put my stamping. So I brought in my Cajun Craze, because that's one of the colors in the designer paper, and I got the sentiment that I wanted to use, and I inked it up, and I went ahead and stamped it in the bottom corner here. But see, I wanted that paper there so that I can get a visual and that I wasn't going to be totally far off. And so I did that, and then what I did after I had that stamped in is I went ahead and I took that little blotchy little thing and I inked it up and I stamped it, and let me bring in the stamped piece so you can see it. So I stamped one full strength here, and then without re-inking, I stamped again next to it, and I did that on both corners of this sentiment. So there you go. Kind of looks like that. So let's move this piece. I just didn't want to do all that because I wanted to get on with the card making. So next, we are going to take this piece and we're going to line up the edges, and we're going to go ahead and adhere this to the card. So I just went ahead and you could use your glue, but I'm going to go ahead and just use the Stampin' Seal on this piece. So I'm just going to put some on all the edges. And then we're just going to take this flat end and line it up with the top and the sides. Okay, there we go. So then I took another piece. Remember, I was going to show you that green of that back side of that other. And like I said, I'll have the dimensions in the description. And I took that piece that I had cut down and I ran it through the embossing folder called Time Worn Type 3D. And I just really like that. I wanted to add a little texture to that. So now what we're going to do, and I think on this, because I'm not going to know where to put the adhesive because it's going to be hanging over for a little bit. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to use my glue and kind of just stay in this top area and not go below this area here. So let's just go ahead and add some glue here and make sure that I don't come below that. And then now we're going to line up the bottom edge, butt it up right next to each other, and line up this bottom edge and this edge, and then just adhere it. And I probably should have, no, I didn't have to worry because I put the glue on the cardstock seat. So go ahead and adhere that down, and then I'm going to take my scissors and turn it over, and I'm just going to cut off the excess that we don't need. So let's do that real quick here. Cut that off. And we're going to use these pieces here. So don't throw them away, because we're going to use these on the inside of the card. There's no reason to waste anything, right? Especially designer paper. Cardstock, I can get away with wasting it, but their paper is so beautiful and I hate to waste it. So now I decided that I wanted, for some reason, fall and these colors that we're using today, I just like the copper foil sheets. So I went ahead and I have two pieces of different sizes. And like I said, I'll put the dimensions in the description of the copper foil sheets. I just like the way that looks for fall and with this paper. So I'm going to go ahead and pull in my silicone mat here because I don't want to get glue on my mat here. And I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on the back of here. And then we're going to take this piece. We're going to lay this here because I have glue everywhere in the back of this piece. And we are going to line up, kind of lay it over where it meets here, and line it up at the bottom here. And then just get that lined up. And that's what I like about the glue in this case, because now we can move it around a little. So there we go. Going to add it like that. And if you get a little glue on your fingers and you get it on the copper foil like I did there, once I get that down here, I'll show you how I clean that up at the end here. So now let's go ahead and do the same with this other piece. And you don't want to do a lot like I did there, because then it's going to ooze out and get on your fingers and then all over your card. But we will clean that up. See? And then if you do something stupid like that and stick your whole finger in the glue, then you're really in a mess. So let me, gosh, see what a mess this is? This is why I don't like liquid glue very much. But it is nice for moving around. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this right at the edge of where those two pieces of designer papers are, and then just kind of make sure it overhangs on both sides so that, oh, see, I have that glue on my finger, so it's sticking to, and it's gluing it to my finger. See over here how it's not hanging off. So you got to make sure that you're hanging off on both sides so that it's even. Now we're going to go ahead and push that down. Now I'm going to look for a baby wipe and clean my fingers, because this is not working very well. And that we'll let that dry like that as I wipe my fingers down. So now what we can do is turn this over and cut off the excess that's hanging off the edges. And then I use non-stick scissors, which Stampin' Up doesn't sell, but I do that because, see, I have glue on the back of that, and I don't want my scissors, they're going to get all gunky with glue, and so I want to be able to clean off my scissors pretty easily, because they're have that non-stick what goes on your cookware. Okay, so now we have that on there. So now I think we are ready to get our card base, and I think, oh my goodness, did I forget to cut the card base? Okay, so we are going to, I guess, not cut the card base for now. What we're going to do is I'll just kind of show you. So we would have this Cajun Craze card base, and then you would just take this and you would mount it on here. And I'm not going to do that right now because this is the back of my finished card. But you would adhere that here, and then what I did was I took the two little birds that I die cut out, and I put some Stampin' Dimensionals, the mini ones, on the back of them, and then I went ahead and placed them on the card. So let's turn this finished card over and show you. So there, I went ahead and put one little bird there, one little bird there, and then what I did was on the inside of the card, I took another piece of your basic white, and I took these leftover pieces that we cut off, and I put some glue because I wanted it to be able to move, because we're going to have to cut off some of that because I wanted the points. I wanted the point to meet there, and I wanted the point to meet here. So I went ahead and I adhered it like this, and then turned it over and cut off that excess. And I did that with that piece on the top and this piece on the bottom. Also moved it over to where the point of this one was with the edge of the card and here like that. And then also turn it over and cut it off. And then I went ahead and adhered that to the inside of the card. So then that would leave you with this on the inside. And you could stamp a sentiment up there or just write whatever you want in there. But with the cool thing about this, when you cut your designer paper like this, you have now 4 this size to make 4 quick and easy cards. So I just thought that was a cool idea, and it's a way again to show off your designer series paper, and I just loved it. And I love the copper foil because I think that just adds a lot to it. So there you have it. That is our card for today. I will go ahead and put all the dimensions in the description, and then hopefully you guys can have fun making this card and um, find other papers that you can use and the different designs you can use. It would be really fun to see how many different coordination designs here. Now, what she also did, you don't have to use designer paper here. She just took a piece of cardstock and she just went ahead and embossed it. But I kind of liked the look of this. It wasn't a big design, but it had just a little bit of design in there. And so I decided I wanted to use a designer paper instead of cardstock. There you go. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that card. And you all have a great day. And we'll see you next Monday. Bye bye.